Hey everyone, what's up? Rachel Harrison-Sund here, answering your low content publishing related questions. So let's get right into it. Our first question is from Catherine. And Catherine asks, what are the characteristics of a great low content book? So of course there are lots of different low content book types out there. So, this answer might vary a little bit depending on what type of book we're going for, but there are, some general kind of rules you can follow across the board. So first and foremost, you want to be making a good quality book that people are actually searching for. So, right up front, you want to be doing that research and just making sure that you've got that down before you create the book. So you want to know people are actually looking for that book. And, right off the bat, that's just going to create circumstances where your book just has a much better shot. So always do your research beforehand. When it comes time to make the book, you want to make a really high quality book. So what I mean is, when you're looking at your competition, which obviously I want you to be studying before you create that book, you want to look at that competition and feel confident in your ability to create a book that is at least at the same level of quality as what's already out there, but preferably higher quality. So, when I'm talking about a quality cover, you want to be creating something that is appealing to the eye. Now, obviously it helps if you have a little bit of design sensibility. You don't have to be a professional designer by any means, but you do kind of have to have a sense of what looks good and what doesn't, so that you've got a bit of a starting point, so you can kind of just feel out what looks good and what doesn't, and what you're up against, and like I said, feel confident in your ability to create something that's better than what's already out there. We all buy things based on what they look like. For example, when I'm out buying a bottle of wine, I will oftentimes, or at least I have been known to, buy a bottle of wine based solely on what the label design looks like. So we all do this, and people are going to be doing that with your books as well. So you've got to make that book cover appealing to whatever that target group is looking for. So kind of piggybacking on that there, you want to create something with a specific target audience in mind. If you create something that's too generic and you're trying to appeal to everyone, you're going to appeal to no one, right? So you got to have that target audience in mind, and you want to be creating something specifically for that specific person or group of people that would be looking for a book like the one that you would like to create. Also think about the type of features to include in that book. And again, it comes back to your target audience. What features would that particular audience be looking for in a book like yours? So let's take a planner, for example. Does that particular audience that you're catering to, do they want to see their planner divided by days or weeks or months? Do they want each day divided up into hours? Depending on what interest group you're going for, that might differ from group to group. Do they want room for phone numbers in the back? If it's geared towards a younger generation, well, that's pretty outdated nowadays. I think, I certainly don't ever use any of that space in the back for phone numbers anymore. So just kind of think about what specific features that specific target audience would be looking for. And I think that will really help you out. Okay, so I think that kind of wraps it up for that question. We'll move on to the next one here. So Melinda wants to know, can you upload a blank journal / sketchbook to KDP? So as far as I know, you can still do this. There are lots and lots of blank books and sketchbooks uploaded to Amazon. I don't think they've changed the rules about that. I did check the content guidelines, which I've linked to in the description below, and you can take a look at that. It doesn't say anything explicitly about that there. It just talks a lot about like public domain content, copyrighted things, stuff like that. So, I always just recommend get really familiar with all of the KDP guidelines and terms and conditions. definitely bring like a liter of coffee with you for that session, because there's a good chance you might fall asleep halfway through reading that, or probably more like in the second paragraph. It's a total snore, but you really got to do it. There's a lot of stuff in there that definitely is in there to protect them and not us. So you really want to make sure you're not violating any of their rules, because you don't want to put your account in jeopardy. So that's a little bit of a tangent there, but start by reading these content guidelines, which I've linked to below. And definitely, if you haven't read all of the terms and conditions yet, set aside some time and do that. Like I said, you're going to need an hour or two. So just do it. Sit there with a highlighter if you want even, and just highlight any pertinent things that you might want to come back to. Okay, so next question is from Kaylee. How can I design great looking covers? Do you recommend taking a course in graphic design, just looking at the covers of other similar titles and putting a little spin on them, or throwing a load out there and just seeing what works? So first off, I would start with just looking at lots and lots of different book covers for some inspiration. So you could start a Pinterest board if you want, and just start collecting book covers that you like the styles of. You can group them according to style if you want. So depending on your target audience, you've got a Pinterest board you can come back to and just get some, get the creative juices flowing by, looking at some visual inspiration. I mean, obviously you don't want to outright copy anyone, but just taking some design cues and just looking for that inspiration is a huge, huge help. I mean, that's what I've always done. Anytime I'm about to embark on a new design project, the first thing I do is I just see what's out there, what's been done, what's working, what's not, what the current trends are. So definitely just, see what's out there, look at current trends. Is there any current trend that you can kind of piggyback on? Again, I want to reiterate, you're not copying anyone here. It's just, you're taking some inspiration and design cues. I would say in your designs, if you're really not a professional designer and, you're kind of just starting out, I would say stick to clean and legible fonts. I know it can be tempting to download all these crazy fonts. A lot of them are just crap. They're really low quality and they're not going to look good. So if you're not quite sure about what looks good as a font and what doesn't, I recommend sticking to some of the classics. And if you're kind of not sure what those are, just do a Google search. You could even just search classic fonts. I'm sure there'll be a ton of stuff that will come up, and you can see across the style board what are some good high quality fonts that you probably already have on your machine that you can stick to. And I wouldn't deviate too far out of there unless you have a bit more of a sense of what you're doing. Let's see here. So make sure that, first of all, if you're going to design your own, I would recommend a program like Canva. Canva is super easy to use, and it is built for print production. So I definitely recommend that over something like PowerPoint or Google Slides or Keynote. Those are specifically built for presentations on screen. They really are not designed for print production. So I know a lot of people do use them, and if that's where you're the most comfortable, that's fine. But if you're starting off from scratch, I would definitely recommend trying out Canva. So make sure that your design matches the content. So again, think about your target audience, and make sure that the design that you're creating would be appealing to that specific group within the context of what that book is for. So this example is kind of extreme, but it'll send the point across. You wouldn't want to use a polka dot pattern for a funeral guest book, most likely, right? So I mean, that's an obvious one, but just think about if your design makes sense, not only for the group of people that you are creating the book for, but also the context of the book, basically. So back to Canva, just for a quick second here. Canva's great because it's got a lot of pre-made typographic elements. So typography is probably the most challenging part, I think, of anyone who's kind of a newbie at design. It can be really hard in the beginning to have a good sense of what looks good and what doesn't. And what's great about Canva, it's got these pre-made typographic treatments that you can just drop into your design, and you basically just go in there and swap the words out for whatever you want, and you'll end up with quite a nicely designed typographic element to your book cover. So I really recommend that. They've also got lots of great backgrounds and imagery and things like that. A lot of that is included in their free version of the program. There is a paid version. I'm not convinced that you need the paid version. I'm sure there's going to be more features, but I think you could definitely get by on the free version. If you are a little bit more experienced and you kind of want to take this design thing a little bit more seriously, you could consider getting Adobe InDesign. InDesign is the industry standard for designing any sort of print piece. So it's what I use, but fair warning, it is a very, very robust program, and there's a steep learning curve. So even though, like I said, it's the industry standard, I really don't recommend it for complete beginners. There have been a couple of people that I've been speaking to in my audience that just decided to jump right in and use it, and honestly, I've been blown away at how quickly they've picked it up, because for me, it took me a couple of years to really get proficient. Now, having said that, me taking a couple of years to get proficient, that's working on much more complex projects than what we're doing here with the low content books. So you could probably learn the basics of that in a lot less time. But just keep in mind, there will probably be some frustration as you're starting out. So, you just kind of want to keep that in mind. The other thing too, of course, is that it's not a free program. So I think if you wanted just InDesign, it's probably about $20 or $30 a month to subscribe to it. So, there's a recurring monthly fee there as well. But it's an option if you kind of want to take things up a notch. The last thing I'll say about designing book covers is if you've got absolutely no eye for design whatsoever, I would recommend outsourcing your covers. You really do want to be able to create a visually appealing cover. Like I've said before, you do not have to be a professional designer. You really don't. But you do need some sensibility. You need to be able to recognize what looks good and what doesn't. And if you don't have that basic ability, I think you're going to have a lot of trouble selling books. We all buy things based on appearance. And, if your books don't look good, then, the main thing is they're just not going to be able to stand up against any of your competition. So you're going to want to invest in someone that kind of knows what they're doing and can create the books that, or create book covers that are going to help your book to sell. Okay, next question is from Bridget. And Bridget asks, does anyone else have trouble getting their books approved because their, quote, cover title doesn't match their description? So this is something that I've kind of seen come up a lot recently. First off, the title of your book as you enter it must be exactly as it appears on your book cover. Now that's just the title, that's not including the subtitle. You can have whatever you want as your subtitle, that doesn't have to actually appear on your front cover. So I think what's going on is people are seeing these kind of long-winded book titles that have maybe like 10 or 12 words in them, and then they're looking at the person's cover and going like, what the heck? Only the first part of that title is actually on the cover. And I think what's just going on is people are seeing the title and the subtitle together and assuming that that's the entire, just the title, which isn't usually the case. So what you really want to look for when you look at that title, find where the colon is. Everything before the colon, that is the title portion, and that is what does have to appear on the front cover or spine of your book. And everything after that colon is the subtitle. And then if you see another colon and stuff after that, then they've got a series title in there as well, I think. Or maybe the series is in brackets. I can't remember right now. Either way, when you're seeing that big long title, that's not just the title. You're going to have just the subtitle and everything in there too. So I think, Bridget, I think that's what you're seeing. I think you're seeing people's subtitle as well. And the subtitle you do not have to include on your book cover. Okay, next question, and I don't have a name for this one, unfortunately. I must have forgotten to copy that one down. So, last question. I'm ready to upload 10 to 20 books with the same interior, different covers. Do you use the same title, and what is the best practice? So, I often do this too. I'll have a similar or the same interior with 10 or 20 different book covers. That's fine, but I do like to change either the title or the subtitle. If you've got the exact same title, then I would definitely differentiate the subtitle just so that there is some sort of differentiation. And what you can do here is, let's say that your title is Daily Planner. So for your subtitle, you can include another keyword, another word that means the same thing as your title, so a different keyword, and then you can differentiate it by talking about the design of the cover. So for example, let's say you've got Daily Planner as your title, and then you've got a blue floral version of that cover. You could have Daily Planner as your title, and then you could do blue floral personal agenda as your subtitle. And then for the second book, you could do Daily Planner as your title. And for the subtitle, maybe you could have pink polka dot personal agenda as your subtitle. So personally, that's how I like to do it. I do think it is important to change it up a little bit and just differentiate it, whether that is on your title. So you've got keeping in mind that what you use in your title has to appear exactly as it is on your cover. So if there is a difference in your cover with the words that are on it, you can differentiate in your title. If not, if it's the same set of words or phrase on each cover, then personally I would try and differentiate it with the subtitle, usually by calling out just what the design is. That's how I like to do it. Okay, so that is it for questions. Thank you so much for watching again. And as always, if you've got other questions for me, you can leave them in the comments below, and I will try to get to them in the next Q&A. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day.